Hi, this is Steve Gillmor, and this is the Gillmor Gang. Where were we last time? Oh, we were at Salesforce, at Dreamforce last time, with John Taschek and JP Rangaswamy, and who else was on there, John?
Phil Wainwright was on there.
Yeah, and
Victoria from Forbes. Yeah.
Victoria Barrett from Forbes. Okay, so we had an incredible Dreamforce last night or last week, and we'll find out about how Le Web went, which I've been at for the last 2 years, but not this year. So I'll start with Mike Arrington. Welcome, Mike.
Am I on? Hello?
Yes.
Hey.
How was Le Web?
It was great. It was a flawless 3,000 people. Really well done. Good speakers. Good food. Not a lot of news. But other than that, it was great. Really, really fun.
Also at Le Web was Robert Scoble. Welcome, Robert.
Hey, how you doing?
Ditto
to everything Mike says. Only the food was better than he says.
The food was better.
Yeah,
yeah, but you were getting fed, directly from Loic's fork, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So that's different. That's different. I mean, that always is true. And speaking of food, Danny Sullivan. Welcome, Danny.
Hi. I had lunch a little while ago, so it wasn't as good as Le Web, which I wasn't at. So I'm missing out all everywhere.
Well, it wasn't as good as my segue. All right, so let's get started. Robert, what's going on this week?
Yahoo's killing Delicious.
Or not.
Or not.
What do you mean? Kevin Marks. Thank you. I forgot. Kevin's joining us on audio.
So Mike, who's going to buy Delicious?
No one's going to buy Delicious because by the time they get around to selling it, everybody will have migrated all their bookmarks and gotten the hell out of Dodge.
Right. Mike has this post on TechMeme that says that it's all over for Yahoo. Is that basically what it says?
Yeah.
So what happened? I mean, other than the Steve Ballmer killed them 2 years ago.
They've just been incapable of, you think about, they're shuttering all these products, including things like Delicious that they bought, and they announce it internally. It leaks, of course. No one knows what's going on. Employees are getting fired, laid off, a bunch are quitting. No one knows if there's more layoffs. It just doesn't seem like there's any communication. So I'd say it's being handled. It couldn't have been handled worse, any more poorly than it was, in my opinion.
But, I mean, did they have anything that they could actually do? By the way, Mike, can you tilt down just a little bit? You're a little high.
Yeah.
I mean,
funny. Is that good?
That's better. I mean, is there anything that they could have done since Microsoft stomped on them after their bad earnings call?
Yeah, well, I think that they, for a long time they're like, we're still a search company. Clearly they're not. We're still a tech company. We're still developing things. We're trying to buy Foursquare. We're trying to buy, Yelp. But then the stuff they have bought in the past, they just let wither on the vine and die. I think what they need to do is just come out and say, here's our strategy. We are in desperation mode. We're going to shut down everything that isn't core to our business. Here is what our business is going forward. And, expect more announcements of things like that. However, certain groups are not going to be touched. There are certain employees that are too valuable to the company. They won't be touched. And make sure they know that they're valued. So that, people know what's coming. So that some screenshot at an internal meeting isn't earth-shattering news that they're shutting down Delicious and freaking everyone out that uses it. That's what I'd do. Just, actually engage in PR instead of whatever it is they're doing, which is running scared.
But Mike, that would require Carol to come, to TechCrunch and not tell you to fuck off.
I don't care that she told me to fuck off. I thought that was funny. It's that
well, it was funny, but
I don't have any
doing
problem with
PR
that.
requires sitting down and actually telling you what's going on.
I thought that was
They could just have a press conference. They could just issue Carol Bartz could write a blog post on the Yodel Anecdotal or whatever their main blog is, just saying her vision for the company.
There's something scraping, some sort of little noise. Is it a bracelet? Or...
It's not me.
Somebody's scraping.
Okay, well, I might kill people as I try and find out.
Scraping.
All right, sorry, Mike, you were saying? So I don't believe that there's anything they can do. I mean, they should just sell off, and as somebody said, just turn off the lights when they leave.
That'll be the last job for the last person.
They're a holding company for Asian assets now. That's all they are.
But do they even control the Asian assets, or is that sort of a separate business that
But they're valuable.
Yeah. So
that's great.
And okay, I think we understand. Robert Scoble, what's this new Flip Scam release?
Flipboard, you mean? It has Google Reader, so now you have RSS feeds in there, and you have Flickr, and they've added made things generally a little bit nicer. I like the Flickr, by the way. It's really cool way to look at. Of course, Yahoo might kill this next week. I don't know.
What, Flipboard?
No, Flickr. What's next? Are they? Of course, there's revenues with Flickr, so maybe they'll keep it around for a little while. But it's just nice to go through your photos that way.
I think it's pathetic. I really do.
Well, Steve Jobs thinks you're wrong. So.
What do you mean, Steve Jobs? What did he say?
He named this the iPad app of the year. So.
Really? Well, I think the Twitter iPad app is the iPad app of the year.
I actually use the Twitter app more, so I'd probably be inclined to agree with you.
Okay. Danny, what do you use on the iPad?
I don't really use the iPad that much. I've been meaning to use Flipboard. I especially need to go back and explore what it does to the content, like if my content's there, do my ads come across or whatever. I use the Twitter app a lot. I use email, and I use my browser. That's pretty much it. I've been using it less, though. I didn't use it that much to begin with, but then when I'm traveling now, I have a Mac Air, so I use that, and I don't feel like I need to take the iPad around. So I use a computer.
Well, I'm reading this LA Times tech blog post. I'm not even reading the post. The headline is, Flipboard's Mike McHugh, web format has contaminated online journalism.
Yeah, I saw that. I tried to get into it. I didn't get that into the article.
Here's a TechCrunch article, by the way, in Flipboard, and it does show an ad. It doesn't show all the ads on the side. So, I don't know if Mike Arrington likes this or hates it, but at least there's an ad there, and the whole article is there, which is really nice.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Whose ad is it? Is it a Flipboard ad, or is it an ad?
No, it's an ad from RSS, from PG&E. Yeah.
Who do you have to be friends with to be like one of their default sources, by the way? I'm trying to find Flipboard on here now. There's probably an easy way for me to find it, too. Huh?
Mike McHugh. No, actually...
then I have only nice things to say about Mike. You're awesome, and I admire all your thoughts.
I'm actually, in the main Flipboard tech feed, I'm not a default source. They picked TechCrunch, VentureBeat, GigOhm, and a couple others. So
I clearly need more search content there. It's funny. I was at O'Reilly did this news food camp about 2 weeks ago. So it's like their food camp where there's no set topics. Everybody just kind of creates ideas to talk about. But this was all about the news industry. And one of the things I really came away with was this question of how do you make sure your long form content or your articles or any good content that people want to read is available to them in ways that they can get to it. You have people who see an article that they want to read and then they don't remember that they should do it. And that's, for example, something I guess that the Instapaper fans are really hot on. Like, this is a great way for me to save it, compile this, and then I can read it, if you will, in my newspaper on my own. But it just seems to be so fragmented and still seems to be difficult. I actually went then to go install Instapaper for the first time on my iPhone, and it was a maddening process. And not because they made it that way, but because it was just so difficult to get bookmarking abilities, I guess, into Safari on the iPhone to begin with. Yeah. So, I think things like Flipboard or Instapaper or anything that can help people consolidate the content so they can actually read it when they have time, like we have so much time anyway, right? But, when they can't figure out that you have time or when you're in another place, because a lot of times when you're working or whatever, you just don't have the time to do it. So, I don't know, I'm curious to see how more of these technologies come out and who's going to really get it right. I guess I know Steve thinks, Jobs thinks Flipboard is right, but of course he loves it because his ideal world would be we read everything on our iPad.
Well, I do read everything on my iPad.
Then you're working. You're living the ideal life.
I am.
Yeah.
I am. It's extraordinary how great the iPad is. So, what's your point?
Well, not everybody uses an iPad. Not everybody uses that device. And it
On
made
this call,
WR
only you, evidently, on this call.
well,
I haven't got an iPad. I got a bunch of phones.
You don't have an
got-
iPad. That's because you're waiting for the
My son has
resolution
an
to
iPad.
improve, right?
I mean, clearly, everybody does not have an iPad, given the fact that you've just had all these Android tablets get sold, right? I'm stunned by the numbers, and I know you can debate the numbers and how many were actually sold, but I keep thinking, well, who are these people buying all these? I thought Apple had it all tied up. I think that.
Well, does
The
anybody
idea-
on this call have an Android tablet?
Yep.
You do.
They're so bad.
I've got a bunch of bad ones.
Could you? I mean, Mike, you're the champion of Android, all things Android. What are you saying?
Well, the one I saw was the new Samsung 7-inch piece of shit that was like floating around the web, and it's just. I mean, I think 10 inches is a good screen size. I actually think a bigger screen size is even better. I think that the problem though is just the hardware. Like it's just very thick, and it doesn't. It's not elegant compared to the iPad. You know, if you look at like the new Nexus S, I think compares decently with the design of the iPhone. It's not as good, but it's getting there. And these tablets, these Android tablets, are shitty. They're just really need to improve.
Well, there's a batch of them that are sort of very cheap and low cost and pretty bad. Yeah, definitely.
Everyone I've seen, yeah. I mean, why not just duplicate the iPad?
Mike, did you see the Arcoses at the web?
Yeah, the Arcos are quite nice.
Not at Loeb, but I've seen their tablets. I mean, I've looked at them way back when they were running Windows on them. So
Yeah.
whatever. They're no iPad.
They're okay, but they're $200 less than an iPad, and I think that's how they're going to get sold. It's not as nice.
Are they on an ARM chip? They're not running Intel chips, are they?
I don't know. I'm not a hardware
Pretty
geek
sure they're
that way.
They must be running like a phone chip, which is good. But then they should be able to thin these things down quite a bit.
Well, it costs money to thin things down, doesn't it?
Well, I mean,
They're
the
just
Arcos
they're
ones are
rushing them
pretty
out there to
slender.
get some traction.
What they've been
and
like
then-
before is
Rushing them out.
Hang on a
They've had a
second.
year. I mean, they've had 2 years.
Okay, what were you saying, Kevin?
I mean, the ones I've been playing with, I got played with last year were pretty slender and behaved pretty well, but they had resistive screens rather than capacitive, so the touch screen wasn't as good. And they've changed that with the new iteration. So
I don't understand the logic of, let me spend the same amount of money for something that was leading edge 2 years ago. What is that about?
Leading edge how's the Android tablet leading edge 2 years ago?
No, the iPad was leading edge 2 years ago. At
We've only had the
best,
iPad- we've
at
only
best
had
they're catching up.
Yeah,
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 Six
iPad came out this year, dude. What are you talking about?
Well, you know what I'm talking
April,
about.
right?
The iPhone was the first iPad. That's the way I look at it.
Okay.
okay.
Fine. So it's 2-year-old technology that they're catching up to. They're not moving ahead of it in any way. The software doesn't do anything except Google Voice, which now works on the iPhone, too. I mean, what else is there? I mean, I was surprised when I saw the Samsung. My brother bought one, of course. And, I was surprised that, oh, no, it wasn't even that. It was a video that Loic did of Chatter running a demo, and he was using the Samsung or some tablet. Do you remember which one that was, John?
It was a Samsung, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool, because it looked like an iPad.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the deal here? I mean, it just doesn't...
Well, there's a lot of people who hate Apple and want free of Steve Jobs and want a competitor.
I don't know. That's why all these people bought the things. I mean, and when I was wondering,
There's a lot of hatred out there for Apple, man.
I know there is, but I'm wandering through Best Buy, right? And I'm watching people looking at these things. I'm watching people pick them up and buy them. And they didn't have I Hate Apple t-shirts. They just looked like ordinary people going out and doing their holiday Christmas shopping and looking for some gadgets and being intrigued by them. And what puzzled me was I struggled to first of all think, well, how have you been under a rock not to know that the iPad exists and that's what you would want, right? To me, I would think you would want it because it's much more mature. And I also think about the price that I paid, because I think I paid $500 for my iPad, and I didn't get it with the 3G built in. I didn't want it. I used some Wi-Fi or whatever. And then part of me, I need to go back and look at the pricing, but actually I think you can get the Android tablets with the 3G capability cheaper than you can for the iPad. So maybe there's a cost aspect to it. Maybe there's still a market that just has not heard of the iPad or doesn't really care. They're just bought into the idea that they want to have some kind of a slate computer and this thing looks nice, and for whatever reason they're going to it. But I didn't get the impression that this is suddenly, thank goodness we have iPad and we have Android tablets. Now all the Apple haters finally have a thing to go to. It just seemed to catch on with a group of people that for whatever reason has not gone for the iPad. And I don't know if it's price point or if it's whatever. And
who would choose a 6? It doesn't make sense.
I was going to say, this is on the heels of all the bad
price point doesn't make sense.
The price point of that one doesn't make sense, but the thing is that a bunch of the other ones that are way cheaper. Yeah.
But it's $600 for the Samsung with 3G. What is that, $100 less than the iPad with 3G?
Right, and they're running these ads on television for the iPad with like 70 million apps. Every game is moving to the iPad. I mean,
but most people don't have any clue what apps are. Normal people they're not listening to the Gillmor Gang. They don't know this.
We're not talking about who's listening to this
listen,
show.
What happens in a month when there's a new iPad out and all the current ones are like priced significantly lower?
Exactly.
Yeah, then there's a chance.
You know that's going to happen.
But the thing is, the Android stuff is filling in, is spreading out and filling in the rest of the market.
Yeah,
so
it's demolishing
tiny
Microsoft.
Ones that are very, very
Microsoft-
cheap, and you've got the top end of them is that one that's cost about the same as an iPad, and is reasonably functional.
Startup.
And we're going to see that iterate over time as well.
Talking about Microsoft is kind of like talking about Sun or something. I mean, what do they even have anymore?
Are they
how much coverage do you have?
Tablets?
Hey, can I ask something, Steve?
Uh-huh.
You were talking about Seesmic a bit ago. I heard a rumor that Salesforce invested in Seesmic.
Is that right?
Uh-huh. Seems like you should be disclosing it. I don't want to get into like a Leo Laporte type thing, but it seems like, if that's true, you should be disclosing it when you talk about.
Screw you, Benioff. No.
Is that true?
I don't know. Is that true, John? John's the official Salesforce representative on this show.
I don't know. I've never seen anything come through that way.
Don't know. Come on.
I love this. This is
We're
the
not
deer
in
caught in
the
the
M&A
headlights
group.
look.
I'm just asking if you know. Like, just you can say no.
Stay on
comment.
Taschek, please.
I don't
Say I
know.
don't know when you know full well. Strikes me as. I'm not saying you're lying. I'm just wondering.
Is it a Salesforce thing or is it a Mark Benioff thing? Because the two are a little separate.
I'll tell you, the relationship is that Seesmic was at Dreamforce. There might have been something, a relationship where Seesmic was, a partner there. We might have brought Seesmic in that way. Seesmic was at Cloudforce in London, where they launched the Chatter client. I think Seesmic's just going into the enterprise.
They were in Japan too. Loic was in Japan.
Yeah, right. I mean that's the relationship.
Well, as far as I know, Sarah Lacey's writing a post on TechCrunch in the next 10 minutes about this. So.
Excellent. Well, then we'll all know.
She'll have more access than we do.
It's cool. It's good for Seesmic. I think it's good for Salesforce. So.
Well, they have this app that runs all the major clients. So if that's a good idea, I've been telling Loic to do this for 4 years. So
I have an app that runs all the major clients as well. It's called the browser.
Ooh. So you don't care about the iPhone, right? You're still off the iPhone?
Right. Because I just talked about liking the browser, I don't care about the iPhone. Like we're even that was through me, Steve.
Well, there are two kinds of applications on the iPad.
There are?
Yeah. There are native apps and there are HTML5 or down-level web apps.
So a native app can't be written in HTML5? I actually didn't know that. What is that? I didn't write that down.
You can
actually, a lot of them are. That was an interesting thing in looking at the Chrome
You can
launch.
encapsulate parts of the app.
Isn't downloading an app just kind of like bookmarking a site? Like if you look at my Android phone, there you can see TechCrunch up on the top. You see TechMeme. You also see Yammer. Now, Yammer is what you're calling a native app, and TechCrunch and TechMeme are just bookmarks. They look kind of the same to me. They act kind of the same. I don't understand.
They should be the same. In the cloud, an HTML5 an app, an HTML5 app, they should look the same. I'm a cloud purist, though. I mean, but what's the? I mean, why?
Have you used the iPad app for Twitter?
Me?
Have I?
Yes, you.
Yeah, I think I did. I think it pushes you to download it when you go to Twitter, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's the web app. Now the web app is starting to look more and more like the iPad app.
Yeah.
Okay, but to say that implies that they look different.
I think
so
to talk about there being a difference. I think to talk about there being a difference is talking about a slice of time that's meaningless.
Oh, I agree with that. They're converging, but
they've converged.
Well, they haven't really.
Well, there's
converged.
still some differences, Mike.
It's easier to use the iPad app.
Nothing material.
Go ahead, Robert.
There's some things that can't be done in HTML. Talking all the sensors, I don't believe you have access to the sensors from HTML, right?
It's just a matter of time. Very short amount of time.
Working on it, but yeah,
I admit it's a matter of time, but HTML is a lot better than it was 3 years ago. I had a guy who worked on the Silverlight team 3 years ago, the WPF team, and he was here and he was showing me all sorts of Silverlight, Microsoft, Microsoft's Flash competitor. But he said today we can do a lot of stuff with HTML.
What's Flash?
Impossible 3 years ago. So
I don't remember.
It's like you guys are from the 70s or something. What are you talking about? Silverlight?
It's
Flash? Microsoft?
I think they're Marvel comic heroes or something.
Yeah, Johnny Watt Holmes. It's that kind of conversation.
That's great.
Thank you. I'll be here all week. I really will be here.
Robert, I'm going to send you a text message on my phone. It's pretty cool. It's sort of like an email. It comes through the phone, though.
Oh, speaking of email, could
hey,
email get any more dead?
By the way, I got this new
Samsung
thing on
your phone. It's like
Nexus S.
You
Wait,
can actually
all
talk to people through voice.
Danny,
I don't know
speak
if
up a
you've
little
seen that
bit.
technology.
You're not being heard over the crowd.
Be awesome.
Could you say that again, please? Danny?
Oh, I was just talking about this really cool thing. My phone, I can turn it on and I can punch in numbers and actually talk to people. It's like you're there with them and you can hear them back and forth.
Oh, that's 50s, not even 70s.
What happened to the Stevie Wonder camera angle with Danny 4 weeks ago?
I moved the whole screen down so I can look at it right there.
I got inside your head, basically, is what you're saying. You acted like it was totally fine, but you changed it.
I moved it all down, so now I'm easier. Except that, see, if I look at you, then I'm looking not at the camera.
So Mike, I got this new Nexus S phone, and can you give me some tips on how to make the battery last until, let's say, midnight? I usually don't even use it, and the thing goes dead by 6.
Airplane mode.
I went to a Verizon store, one of those kiosks, and they on I have a Droid X. They installed something called Auto Kill, which every 30 minutes goes and kills every one of your tasks. And they said that will increase your battery life.
So I've had. Can you see my battery indicator? It's like what, a little over half full, and
the screen's not. There's not enough detail on the screen for me to see that.
Okay, well,
I can see it, and I also trust you.
But I think I charged this yesterday before I got on an airplane and flew down here, and I haven't charged it since. I haven't used it much, but it's been on standby.
And how is your phone doing that when mine is a brand new phone? I've loaded a bunch of apps and loaded TweetDeck and stuff on here. But yesterday I literally did not touch the phone, and it was dead by 6 p.m.
Well, look at the battery manager. But what you probably find is you've installed a bunch of things that poll Twitter and Facebook every 15 minutes, and then drain the battery that way. Because they're sitting there going, "Oh, is there anything new? Is there anything new?"
I mean, to give I
have to go through each app and look at the preferences.
I have Twitter and Facebook running. I don't know if Facebook is polling. Twitter clearly is. Gmail clearly is. I don't think Foursquare is, but I don't know.
But that's the problem with. So here are issues with Android in terms of battery life.
There are no issues with Android.
There are.
I installed this double twist app. Have you guys heard of this?
I took my Android. It's okay. I took my Android. Look, mine, and now I have a case. So there you are. That's the Nexus S, and I took that from unplugged in
it
my. It
makes phone calls.
Yeah.
Your iPhone doesn't make phone calls.
Who cares? I only use voice 5% of the time.
Voice is so 50s.
How can you compare this to another phone that doesn't make phone calls and talk about how much it sucks because of something?
What phone call?
I find that absurd.
What am I comparing it to? I haven't even
I'm
finished
sorry.
talking.
I'm overreacting because it's MG in the office all day. It's on my phone.
I've had the Droid 2, which has been perfectly fine battery life compared to, say, I would use the iPhone. The Nexus S, I took it unplugged, went to the airport. It was like maybe 30 minutes from when I had unplugged it, got to the airport, and I was down to 75% charge. All the background data was on, and it was still running Wi-Fi. You turn those things off, your battery life goes up greatly. The problem I have with Android is it doesn't selectively deal with background. You want to go to the market, it insists that you have to turn the background on. Why do I need to turn the background data on just to download a single
Talk
app?
about a reality distortion field. I cannot believe the lengths that people go to rationalize this, series of failure phones that come out.
Well, they all fail in different ways.
It's a failure
right?
phone. It's a great phone.
They have a half-life of 2.5
the
weeks.
same thing on the iPhone, though, right? With the iPhone, I don't leave any background data running if I can help it. I don't leave Wi-Fi on. I turn the damn thing
Well,
off.
they actually do
when I'm
that
not
for
actually
you.
using
That's
it, so
what
the
they
display
do.
is not going, and I have great battery life on that.
Their famous closed system takes care of that for the most part.
But Steve, here's what's going on. Mike works in an office in downtown San Francisco where AT&T really sucks, and I totally get that he needs a real phone there.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's only T-Mobile, so that sucks even worse than AT&T.
T-Mobile doesn't even work in my house right now.
T-Mobile.
Right?
I got 3 out of 4 bars on T-Mobile on this right now.
Because you're downtown San Francisco, but come to my house, you can't even use T-Mobile.
Okay. Well,
Now,
anywhere that you can use AT&T. So.
Well, I've got 2G service right now, but I have full bars on it. And that's T-Mobile. On AT&T, I'll probably have like half a thing, and on Verizon, I'll be powered up. But if you want a good Android phone on Verizon, you're stuck with really, it seems like the Droid 2 or the Incredible. And the stupid thing is that the Nexus S is very much like the whatever it is, the Fascinate, except the Fascinate has been all bingified and is still dumbified in terms of being a 2.1 phone. So you're just like,
name.
what the hell, Verizon?
I'm going to steal that for a title of post.
You've got these
bingified,
bingified, dumbified.
Well, I gave my son the Galaxy S for his birthday, and he loves it. That's on T-Mobile.
I do love it when it has battery life. It's actually a great phone. It actually feels nice for once, and it's fast, and it doesn't stutter the way the old one did. And I'm actually having a lot of fun with it.
What was your last Android phone, Robert?
What's that?
What was your last Android phone before this?
Oh God, I had a Droid, then I had the Nexus 1, then I had I played with a variety of them, and I've given them all back. I had an Evo.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Droid 2 is a very, very good phone.
Yeah,
it was the first time I used
an
an Android phone where I thought this is right up there with the iPhone, and
the
better.
Droid 2. The
and
Droid 2
better
has
in
a
some
keyboard.
cases,
It's not the
especially
Droid
if you want to
X,
do GPS. You want to go somewhere, you hold down that search button, you say navigate to TechCrunch San Francisco, and off you go.
I think the Nexus
maps
1
are
is
way
better.
better on Android.
Well,
the Nexus one's better than what? Than what?
Yeah, then what?
The Nexus 1 is better than what?
Oh, the Nexus 1 was my favorite phone before this new Nexus S. I didn't like any of the Droids. The Evo was a horrible phone.
Yeah.
This phone is great. But I'll tell you, it all changes when Verizon launches the iPhone. I mean, it's game over because Android can't compete anymore. With,
all right, so let's unpack that. When they do this, which is what, 2 months?
Supposedly. Yeah.
Then it's all over. So why are we spending all this time using these other Android devices?
Because it's not all over. It won't be.
It's not all over. No.
It's all over. I mean,
it's not over. Why would it be all over?
Wait a second, Mike. Is Google
now.
Voice going to be as good on the iPhone as it is on Android?
No, it won't. And that's why, for me, I'll stay on Android is because of Google Voice. But Google Voice isn't a mass marketing, argument.
Right. And Google Maps that just came out, I think, yesterday.
Well, no, you're right.
Android is way better.
So key. Google Navigation is so good. And all the voice stuff that Google does on their phones is so good. But the iPhone's pretty cool. I mean, if it actually made phone calls, it'd be really tough to.
Yeah. I guess that's January when they go to Verizon. They'll make phone calls. If that's true.
We'll see. The other problem is what happens if 40% of the iPhone users move over to Verizon? Can Verizon's network really deal with that new customer base?
Give us something new to talk about.
Yeah.
All right,
I'm going to be there.
So how about Yahoo again?
Is there anybody left still?
Exactly. So
very few.
So this is it. This is the dog days of December, and is there anything else that's interesting to any of us?
Word Lens was pretty interesting. I like that.
That was cool. Yeah.
What is that?
That's the app that you run it on your
Excuse
iPhone.
me?
You take a picture of some text and it translates it into Spanish.
It's an app, right?
Yeah, it's an app. You can't do that in HTML yet.
Uh-huh.
It's a video manipulation app. Yeah.
I don't understand why people are having such a hard time with the idea that apps are attractive to normal people.
Yeah. Well, and I have a new app called Speak to
thing.
Me, called Voice DJ, which lets you talk to your iPhone, and it pulls up music out of your iTunes. Pretty nice. And then there's this new Red Nova written by one guy, which is like asteroids modernized. That's pretty cool. All apps that you can't put into HTML.
Why not?
Yeah. Because
Well,
we're still working on standardizing input devices for HTML. It's not there yet.
They're working on standardizing.
Yeah, we've got the draft of a spec for how do you access the video camera and the audio in HTML5, but it's not implemented by anyone yet.
And you think
it's implemented by Mozilla, but it's not implemented by anyone with a phone yet.
And that's coincidence that it's not actually supported by anybody.
What do you mean?
What I'm trying to say
it takes
is
time
that
to agree this stuff.
it's just like a eternal snipe hunt to try and organize everybody except the leader in the market to compete against the leader in the market by completely destroying their differentiation between themselves.
No.
Okay. Do you have another philosophy?
Well, that's one way of looking at it, but it's a very twisted way of looking at it. The point is to, they're all using the same browser.
Twisted. This is the most conservative approach possible to this issue, which is to look at reality and say, isn't it interesting that reality seems to be like this?
Well,
and you call that
if you ignore
twisted?
the fact that Apple and Google are running the same browser while competing, yeah. If you just pretend that's not true, then you can make the world fit your worldview.
Do you think that's an accident that they're running the same browser while competing?
I don't understand what that question is supposed to mean. No, of course it's not.
It means that Steve Jobs
they did it on
has
purpose.
effectively cut off
Sorry.
any fundamental differentiation between the majority of the apps, and then he's got all these things that are native that are much more interesting and cooler, and he ends up selling them in great numbers. There was this article that was passed around about Verizon versus, the phone sales on Verizon on Android were something like, I don't know what it was, but they grew by 20%, and Apple's...
See this?
Yeah, what is it?
It's a Chrome notebook.
I think that's a box.
Well, inside there's a notebook.
I disagree.
Is that the... that's something to talk about.
There's a device inside.
Right.
And it's a device that has a browser. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Flash.
I seem to recall some of your comments. I'm not sure whether they were on your blog or not. I noticed that you just put it back in the box. You're
It's
not
the
using
future. That's what I'm saying. Whether or not this device has flaws, like the mouse is awful or the trackpad is awful, like whatever. Like, why are we talking about old stuff? Why don't we talk about new stuff?
Okay, knock
Arguing
yourself
about apps
out.
and Microsoft. Like, I don't get it.
Oh, I mentioned Microsoft once. Just
Just won't
it was a
go.
pity mention.
Microsoft Connect is actually
See?
pretty new,
Microsoft.
Mike.
I got
you got one
Connect.
at your house yet?
because
Yeah, it is cool.
you, Mike, said that it was incredible. I went out and got
The
it.
Connect is cool, but that's the exception to the rule.
Okay, but what's the rule?
The rule is that you always take simplicity over things that aren't simple. And the browser is simple. It's a virtual machine that works perfectly. And okay, it doesn't hook up to the compass yet. Okay. There are very few exceptions, like navigation, where I really need the sensors involved in my app experience. So I don't know why it's such a big deal.
Do you play games?
I love the Connect. I don't play many games on the phone.
Okay.
I'm too busy. I'm a busy executive. I got shit to do.
So what were you down in Gracie in the Valley for?
Tron screening last night, which I ended up not going to because I was too sick. Good back cold. And then tonight, the AOL fucking mandatory holiday parties tonight. And so...
Is that the official name?
The mandatory holiday party.
Yeah.
Hang on, fucking's mandatory? Wow.
Yeah. So that's going to be fun. And so I'll go to that.
I'll go for you, Mike.
Tron, the mandatory
Give me your driver's
edition.
license. I'll go for you.
He's a mean one,
I would actually
Mr. Arrington.
Yeah.
Gotta
You're all
come to
invited
the
if any of you
mandatory
would like
party.
to go.
But we have to have a badge, don't we? To
No, it's open party. Actually, you want the details? It's
cough.
Yeah, really. Get ready to hit the beat button.
I'm already avoiding a holiday party tonight.
I actually have no idea where the party is or what time it is. Laura, where's the AOL holiday party? At Bimbo's. What's the password to get in?
We're doing a collusion party in the Ritz tonight.
What does that mean?
It's not,
You're colluding with who?
secret people. That way Mike might show up.
What that monitor you have? Is it turned sideways? That's kind of neat. What do you use that for?
Well, Twitter looks really cool on that monitor.
Oh, I can beat that.
I think Twitter is just pulling away from everybody right now.
Well, that's actually Lazy Scope's Lazy Scope, which is showing Twitter flowing in there. It's nice to have it in the vertical
there.
dimension.
Everybody's slapping
gone
their
now.
monitors on the table.
I was there. I've got 2 tall side ones. I got to do a blog post about it. But they're really cool because you can read everything vertically. I've been learning my whole life now how to deal with the
With the
web.
amount of stuff that you type, Danny, you
vertically.
have to read it vertically. There's so
Damn, I
much of
pulled
it.
out a lot of cables.
I know. Now I know Danny's secret. He puts 2 monitors vertically and he fills them up.
That's it.
All right, so predictions
monitors,
for a year from now, what are we going to be talking about? What's going to be number one
Yahoo.
that we're most interested in?
The Yahoo turnaround.
And
Yeah.
it sailed to AOL.
Yeah,
Mike Arrington's going to quit TechCrunch and start a new company.
I'm absolutely not going to quit. I am in love with AOL for at least 3 years.
exactly. I carefully asked that question. There was a 1-year time limit on it for that reason.
Could you edit that part out? No, AOL's great. Yeah.
Okay.
Go Salesforce. I gotta go. I got stuff to do.
You got a party to go to.
I gotta write a post about Google. Interesting new service. We gotta get that Salesforce Seesmic post up. We got news to break.
Mike, did you actually see Tron?
Yeah, I saw the original.
Is it
I
no?
did
Did you go to
The
screen? 'Cause
original
I
was
need
a
to know
really
if it's
crappy
going.
movie, by the
It was
way.
terrible. Yeah, I didn't see it.
It
No.
looked like it was done with Legos, basically.
No.
Oh, come on. The
It was
original
drawn by
Tron was
hand.
crap.
It was 1982. Come on.
I just watched the original Tron last
The original
week.
is actually fun.
My memory.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
it's
Star
actually
Wars
better
was in
than I thought it-
77 or
How
something.
did you watch it? You can't get it on DVD. It's like
I had-
$80 to buy the DVD. How did you watch it?
I
You
had
ask a friend who has the DVD.
loaned me a copy. I had a friend who loaned me a copy. He had a copy and sent it down to me. And you know what? I was surprised, actually. It was better than I remember it. The whole talk of the master computer. I realized it was like, foreshadowing of the thing from Terminator, the Skynet. It had Skynet before Skynet. And the graphics
And the
actually
Matrix.
stood up better than some graphics I've seen from movies of that time as well. But, there was like no great plot. Anyway, I don't know. I had fond memories of it, and they were refreshed, so I'm going to be sad if the new movie isn't any good. Plus, I probably won't be able to force the kids to go see it. I already forced them to watch the original.
So, Mike, what's this Google news that's breaking?
Oh, it's actually a really big deal. There's no way I'm going to say it here.
Go on.
Come on, Mike.
On.
Nobody's listening.
How long do we have to wait until it's on TechCrunch?
Yeah.
I'm giving Google a chance to talk to me about it first because they're going to be pissed. So,
Ooh.
yeah, it's not good. No, I'm just kidding. It's actually cool. It's a new product I heard about. So,
All right.
All right.
See ya.
See ya. Thanks, Mike.
Bye.
See you, Mike.
Bye, Mike.
So let's see. We need one of those clocks, countdown clock for TechCrunch.
2 years, 364 days. If only we had an HDMI 5 app to do that countdowning.
I don't think that would work. I think you guys are in denial about the iPhone and the iPad.
Well, denial of what?
No denial. What nonsense? I say they're nice machines. I buy them. I also
How
buy
do you get back
Android
to
ones.
denial?
Why is that so hard to understand?
There was this report by, I think it was Gartner, that said that 85% of enterprise CIOs are either have implemented or will implement the iPad within, 2 weeks? I mean, it was it was an extraordinary number.
But the smart ones are doing it through the web. That was the other thing that the people said. Rather than building your iPad app as a native app is like building a Flash front end to your website. It's the same problem of, oh, this is a wonderful thing. It looks really whizzy, but actually, is it that useful? Whereas building a version of your site that works well in a modern mobile browser will get you the iPad, the iPhone, the Android, the BlackBerry, and everything else. Well, the new BlackBerries when they catch up, because making a mobile app that works well. There was the thing, the Google Reader app launched this week on Android, and actually it's slower than using the Reader website because the Reader website is actually pretty good. The same experience on the iPhone. The Reader website is better than Reader. I use Reader all the time. Yeah,
people use Reader. I don't, but
Kevin, I'm going to call you on the middle line now that Mike's not there. Stand by.
Okay.
Bye, Kevin. Bye.
He's coming back. That's FlipScam has got Google Reader support now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so RSS is coming back?
No. No.
It's not?
Actually,
Steve Rebell says it's coming back.
The reason I use this lazy scope here is it mixes Twitter and then uses RSS to pull in some content as a preview, and that's actually a pretty cool use of RSS. But normal people aren't going to use normal people are on Facebook. Give me a break. They like things. They don't know how to use Google Reader.
But if you go back, it's not that RSS is dead. It's just RSS is kind of a fundamental technology. It's a fundamental technology to other things that use it. It used to be, I want to keep up with stuff, so here's my RSS feed, plug it into this, plug it into that. Now if I want to keep up with something, I follow it on Twitter, or I follow it on Facebook, and what I'm following may very well be punching out RSS to those things.
Right.
So it's a carrier mechanism, and it's still, I think, very, very useful.
Of course that's true. So, people use... well, I guess they don't use telegrams anymore, but the preceding they use radio in big numbers, right? But I think radio is on its last legs right now because of streaming. I think radio is going away very fast.
Yeah.
So people don't apply the same logic to RSS that they do to. Let's look at MySpace, for example. Would you say that MySpace is dead?
Well, the web audience sure said it was dead.
Okay.
Then it must be.
All right. So,
by the way,
does that mean that all those accounts suddenly went away?
No, there's 60 million people still using it.
Yeah, it's not dead. It's used. It's it's way bigger than the company you work for in terms of users. But they're not paying as much.
Facebook is dominant. When they crossed over, even before they crossed over, when they crossed over in the U.S., MySpace was officially in panic mode. And that was, 2 years ago? A year and a half ago?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. They're dead. Now, it doesn't mean that they go away in terms of their usefulness, in terms of the audiences they support. There are people like John who use Yahoo as a portal. It works fine. In fact, from listening to him, it works better than pretty much any other way of getting a fast aggregation of news, which, by the way, even though they hit it, it supports RSS for most of those feeds. But the Facebook, Twitter model of citation is completely dominant now. I mean, why do you think Delicious is gone? Nobody's looking at those bookmarks anymore.
No.
The bookmarks have moved to the sky, they moved to the cloud, and they are supported largely by Twitter and secondarily by Facebook.
Yeah.
So
Liking and favoriting and retweeting have become the new Delicious, the new bookmark.
because they have attached to them a social graph that tells you not just that the item is interesting, but who the item is interested to. And
Right.
all the other measures of intent and virality and momentum are all based off of those signals, not off of RSS. There is no way to be able to indicate off of RSS anything. And the reason, by the way, that I think FlipScam is a scam is because there's no way for us to be able to actually change what's going on in that environment. There's no feedback loop that addresses the user's personalization of the product. I mean, that's our biggest problem is that there's this broader market with TechMeme, etc., of things that we know a large group of similar people think is interesting. But at the point where it gets down to how do you triage that between what's going on in a broader space, in a Scoble-sized audience, and even your audience is actually quite constrained into a social media kind of frame of reference.
Yeah.
But, that immediately starts to come up and be balanced against email, for example. And there's this tension now that exists between email and, I would suggest, Danny, search. Those are the
tension between email and search?
There's a tension between the citation model as what used to be an RSS model, which has now moved to Twitter and Facebook. That's number one. Number two is email, which is what does my boss or my colleagues or people from outside who have a direct line to me, what do they want to tell me? What do they want to know? And that's number two. And then number three is search. Those are the vectors that I think are dominant in terms of how we spend our time.
Well, we certainly had a survey from Pew earlier this week that said, what do we do online? And like 90% or so of the people said that they email, and like 90% or 85% of the people said that they search. Interestingly, the social stuff didn't even register, but I don't think that they act that appropriately. But yeah, I agree. Those are all really big things that people are doing. I guess I don't agree that they necessarily rob each other, though.
No, I didn't say they rob each other. I said that managing that triage, managing that equation, is where I think these programs like Flipboard and whatever its direct competitor is, Flock, or in the older versions, Google Reader, etc. These are all going after monitoring one of those spaces. Then there's email, and then there's the search traffic, which for me, I try and virtualize or normalize with the other two by using alerts. Alerts for me are, Google real-time alerts are astoundingly fast. I post anything and it comes up as an email to me within 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, that to me is that's using email as a signaling mechanism and as a capture for what's happening in these other areas. But then if you want to communicate with those people, where I'm moving more and more to is to Twitter and the iPad interface, because, something happens. And, this is what John and I have been experimenting with, this whole @mention philosophy, I think, is going to start to take off as a sort of an architecture of, if you look at the cascading people who @mention somebody, who else do they @mention, and what is the content that hangs off of that information. That's going to be the core social graph for getting into the personalization of these things around our core messaging, and then that's why direct messages become so important, because they essentially take email and throw it away, which couldn't happen quicker.
Right. But that's, I mean, but yeah, the new behavior that we've got is the behavior that comes from blogging, from the stuff that we were doing 10 years ago, that is now moved out into the mainstream, which is I'm posting something without it being addressed to anyone particularly. That's the sort of pattern that we've got that's there in Twitter, it's there in Delicious, and it's there in Facebook now. Facebook has moved from being I'm sharing this with 50 people to I'm posting this so lots of people can see it.
Yep.
And one way of looking at Delicious is that it was a way of reinventing blogging as a closed system. That was therefore able to have a few more features, but it was basically saying, oh look, if I build it this way, it will work that, and I can still plug it into the ecosystem. I can still generate feeds and.
But it was the first.
It's real interesting. I never got into Delicious, and I missed Delicious because I had a blog and I had the ability to put stuff into Google by saying, hey, here's a cool company, here's a link, and blog that. And that got it into Google, where I knew I could pull it back out. I can go to Google even today and say Victor Coffee Scobleizer and pull back a blog post I did 6 or 7 years ago about Victor's Coffee up in Redmond, Washington, right? And I knew that I could do that. So I never got why I needed a bookmarking service. But people who didn't have a blog needed that, right?
But it was the first social graph. I mean, Delicious was the first, system that tied together the intent and the authority or relevance of the reader, the person that was aggregating the information.
But Twitter and Facebook have opened up this kind of system where we can shove stuff into a system to a much wider number of people, because it's only 140 characters. A lot of people feel like they can do it, and so you see millions and millions and millions of people using these systems where they just didn't get into blogging because that required you to write, and not everybody's a writer. They don't see themselves as a writer.
Right, and the retweet mechanism, which I was unhappy about initially with Twitter, because I felt that what it was doing is exactly what it was doing, which is that it was stubbing out, the sort of basic retweet and turning it into a Twitter-owned metadata object. But in fact, it is so brilliantly easy to use that
Right.
and the iPad app. I don't know about the others, but the iPad app also gives you, if you hold down if you hold it, the touch down, it gives you a menu choice between retweet, the standard retweet, or quoting. In other words, adding some comment. So it's brilliant in its velocity. It turns everybody into a Delicious contributor.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's I mean, it's also the Tumblr gesture. Tumblr is another example of this, where they took the same blogging paradigm but wrapped it up in something that worked a bit better within that site. So they have the resharing and the commenting there. It's very much that same pattern.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Danny. Do you use Tumblr? Have you ever even seen
I
it?
don't. I keep feeling like I should use it, but I just haven't gotten to it yet.
I'm in that boat, but
But I don't use it much myself, but that's the pattern that people use it. They find stuff and they reshare, and there's a lot of resharing with Tumblr.
I wanted to show you guys this thing called Memo Lane. Have you guys seen this?
No, go ahead.
So Memo Lane takes all my bookmarks or all my favorites or retweets and all my tweets and all my Facebook Foursquare check-ins and my photos, Instagrams here, and other things that I'm doing, and puts it into this beautiful timeline.
What's it called, Robert?
Memo Lane. Memo Lane. It's coming out soon. It's in beta right now. Actually, you guys can get a beta if you use the keyword Scobleizer.
I'm waiting for my Facebook beta. Thank you. What's the story there? Is it just still broken?
I added you to the.
Yeah, I know. I've tried to extort it out of various officials, and no luck. I think I must have said something.
Wait, what are you trying to get?
Oh, there's Doc Searles. I'm trying to get a Facebook mail identity.
Oh, you just need to go to the page and it authors you. Hang on. There's an info page about it, and by going to that page, it then adds you to the invite. That's how it works now.
Oh. You mean I can't
So
blame them for it?
this is a really interesting way to look back at your the stuff you've saved. And Alan Stern was just saying he never looks back at his favorites, and this is or his retweets or his stuff that he stored on Twitter.
All right, so explain this to me. How this harvests retweets? What does it do?
You add your Foursquare, your Twitter, your Flickr, and other things into this, and it goes back and grabs as much of that stuff out of the API as possible and puts it into this timeline. And the timeline itself lets you, go. I've just enjoyed going back, years back and seeing what I blogged about or what I tweeted about or what I put up on Flickr or what I put up on YouTube, and it's pretty interesting.
John, you got any thoughts?
I think it's really fascinating to.
So this is the new friend feed.
Yeah.
No, it's not friend feed because there's no comments.
It's just you. It just takes all what your life, right, and puts it in front of you. Everything you've done, your photos. It's got this hook.
So it's just for you. It's not publishing.
It is published. You can choose whether to keep it private just for you or make it public. Now I've made mine public, so you can go to beta.memolane.com/Scobleizer and see mine, and you can see what it looks like, or what it'll look like with yours.
But what you want to do is you want to map it to your family, and so that so you have kind of like what points in time you're in, like what's happening in history while you're saying things to put them in context.
I don't want to announce products for them, but they're working on something like that so that you could have a memo lane of just the stuff of your family and a memo lane of just the stuff of your work life and the.
Luckily, you don't want to announce it though.
I think it's going to be awesome because people are interested in themselves, first of all, and there's no way to figure out what they've done, what any individual has done, unless you go and search, and the search comes up with all these, weird references. But if it's put into a format like what Robert was showing, I think that's going to be a big thing. I mean, and I think they're the first to do it.
So Robert, put the URL in the chat. Okay. I can't get the chat up right now. Robert, have you seen anything that we need to address before we wrap this up?
No, not really.
All right, so
my memo lane's empty now. It couldn't get anything from Twitter.
Yeah, mine's saying can't get to Twitter either, but it pulled from Facebook and Flickr.
Yeah, and I don't want to give it Facebook because I got 100 million things that said it wanted to do a billion stuff, and okay, you're done.
Yeah, well, with Twitter, that's true too.
We want the right to obtain your firstborn child.
Yeah. Keep in mind, this is a new company, so that, they might be having scalability problems. That's why they haven't made it a public thing yet. But
all right. So once around the table, Danny, what are you looking? These next few weeks, I'm going to have a scrounge. It's going to be difficult to get a show going because everybody's going to run away now for the holidays and pretend to work next week and then not work after that. So what do you see as the next big thing that's going to come along that's going to get your attention in the new year?
Personally, I'm going to continue to watch how the search engines are using social data. We had Bing roll out more usage of like information this week from Facebook. Bleco rolled out their own tool to do the same. I'm especially going to be watching what goes on with Google to try to pull that in and how they're going to also try to leverage Twitter more. That's probably the key thing I'm going to be looking at. And I'll keep watching what's going on in terms of mobile because the space continues to explode and people's habits are continuing to change. And I guess those are probably the two things.
Okay, great. And just for your information, I'm going to try and do Gillmor Gang's next Thursday at 11 and then the following Thursday at 11. So if you can attend either of those, it would be wonderful, or both, if you're like. Robert, what's your...
The hot product of the year is the Microsoft Connect. I'm seeing so many hacks that are being done with that, and I think Microsoft really hit a home run. But I'm like Danny, mobile continues to be top on my mind. That's the most used thing in my life right now. I want to see what's going to happen with slates. I'm watching, all the Android slates and the we haven't seen the Palm one yet come out. So
Please.
you might say please, but we'll see.
It could be the best one yet.
We'll see. I doubt I'm going to give up my iPad, and I want to see what this new iPad.
Nobody is going to give up their iPad.
Absolutely, but
thank you.
I want to see what they're going to try to do to make it an interesting discussion.
Fair enough. Kevin.
I think it's a combination of things. I think what you're seeing with these things like Memo Lane that Robert just showed us, and a bunch of these others, is that this idea of combining feeds from multiple places and making sense of them is actually becoming tractable now, and that's going to grow, and we're going to see more of that. And the other thing is sensors. Talking about what you could do with video cameras, and what do you call it, word lens thing. Another one that Dan Kaminsky did this week that adjusts the color of the camera so that if you're colorblind, you can distinguish red and green. Well, that was very neat. The Inception iPhone app that takes the ambient noise and mixes it into the Inception music, so you feel like you're in the movie as you're walking around. People are starting to play with having new sensors and things to deal with, because we're starting to carry devices that have them, and that's only going to grow. Next year that will be even bigger. If you want my prediction for a year, that people will be doing strange things with sensors that we weren't expecting them to do, and that would have moved on in the same way that at the moment everyone's built a little photograph app because everyone's carrying a camera now. There'll be stuff of that applies to different sensors that we hadn't thought about before.
John?
Yeah, well, I think Rovio, the maker of Angry Birds, is going to buy Microsoft. That's my prediction. No, I'm of course tracking the enterprise, and the use of mobile in the enterprise is good. I think the term social CRM and all those things about social enterprise and things like that will just become parts of other systems, and I want to track that. I mean, so I think it's gonna, that the terminology is gonna peak. I think at that when that does peak, that's going to be an interesting conversation, an interesting inflection point. But it's going to be a really exciting year from an enterprise standpoint. I know that enterprise is somewhat boring to most people, but it is really going to be a fascinating year, especially as Apple gets into it in a big way.
Right, and I basically think that what Robert was talking about with Connect, I think that the flaw in Connect's strategy right now, other than, in terms of it going wider than just the niche of Connect, is that they don't have a connection to these mobile devices. So it's something that combines, FaceTime and Connect, whether it's, whether they open up that bridge themselves or whether they third parties do it or whatever. And the same thing, of course, with the Android, the slates. If the Android slates start having some sort of a standard around video that actually starts to work, I think that's going to be a big deal, because it's going to unbundle what Apple's doing, and then that moves into the television, which I think is just we are finally at the point now where it's actually worth buying a big TV screen and a stereo system. At least that's the theory, John. And John and I are talking about that in the chat room. If you want to vote on Marantz versus Pioneer, what I'm looking for is something that isn't so good that I can hear how crappy Apple's codec sounds in terms of iTunes. Let me know about that. And I think that the intersection of these three screens, pardon the expression, Microsoft, is really upon us now, and it's going to there's going to be some explosive growth, and that's why I think the app space is not to be trifled with. I think it's the economic driver for the media industries, the sports, medical, and huge audiences that are basically real time specific and extremely mission critical for us, living and how we manage our time with our families and our businesses. So I think it's all, I don't think the enterprise is a boring story anymore. I think that was 2009. This is Steve Gillmor. This has been the Gillmor Gang. I want to thank John Taschek, Kevin Marks, Mike Arrington, Sorry about that. Robert Scoble, Danny Sullivan. I hope you guys can come back in the next 2 weeks so that we can start to drill down and put your thinking caps on about specifically who's going to actually win this and who's going to lose this. I want to thank our sponsor, Rackspace, and particularly Rob Legess, without whom this show would not be back on the air. And I want to thank New Tech and their TriCaster, without which this would not be on video. I feel your pain about the RSS feed for podcasting. It's been intermittent due to circumstances beyond the people who are working very diligently to try and carve up audio and then put it back on the network so that it can go to iTunes. But more and more, this is a streaming world, and it's a smaller market right now. And it's not that we don't care; it's just that the dedication of time for that is difficult for us to do. And I want to thank our producer and director Tina Chase Gillmor, and who, if you search your Twitter readers, you'll find that she's involved in some interesting stuff as well. And I want to thank everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.